Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Unspun Yarn. I'm Nessie, your host, and this is my good friend John from John Webster Film.
Hey guys.
Hey, and today we're going to be talking about an archetype called the Magician, and one of the most famous examples of this archetype is Merlin. And as you know from Arthurian legends, the general tale of Merlin is that he is the magical mentor to our King Arthur. He hides him as a baby, protects him, nurtures him, and gives him wise counsel. The
Boy,
while
that sounds familiar.
It should sound familiar because Merlin is like the OG version of every one of these um, magical counselor types that we see in modern cinema and fantasy and fiction. And I say he because this can be a female as well. But for this episode, we are just going to primarily focus on the masculine type archetype. When I get Aaron on in 2 weeks, we'll do the flip side of that. So your nemesis will have the other half of that, John.
I know. I'm actually, now that we talked about it, I'm actually slightly jealous about that because I mean, it's unavoidable that if you're talking about uh, Morgana, that you're gonna go into Mists of Avalon territory. And oh my God, did I love that book?
We've been known to dip into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and that's spoiler alert for everybody. I'm going to be doing some Mists of Avalon content in the future. Maybe it's a favorite of mine. It's a favorite of John's and Aaron's. So we'll be getting into that, later on this year. So look forward to that.
Yeah.
So, as you guys saw on the thumbnail, John does these great thumbnails for all of our channels. It's actual the Disney version of Merlin.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually kept flipping back and forth between whether I wanted to use that one or another favorite version of Merlin of mine, which is the 1998 NBC miniseries starring Sam Neill. But I thought that the Disney Merlin would be more recognizable for more people, and also because really, if I think about it, it's the first time I really saw Merlin as a character. It was very formative, and I think it really planted the seeds for what that wizard or magician archetype is for me.
It is, and it's what a lot of most children in the modern era are introduced to this magical world through. I mean, let's face it, Disney. The Disney stories that are the animation that we that they bring to life. That's so many favorite stories are brought to life, and that's how kids these days, me being one of them, are introduced to these type of characters, and Disney has kind of set their brand on introducing you or children or whatever to the wonderful world of Disney, which is this magical world. And that in itself is kind of what the magician archetype's job is to introduce the hero of the story to the magical world. So, and a lot of popular ones, we have today. Like my kid, my daughter, she was a Harry Potter fan. We read all the books, we saw all the movies, we did all the things, so that was kind of like her indoctrination, into the quote magical world of fantasy, and as not just we
it's
the
funny,
readers as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
it's funny because and Merlin is actually like a thing within the world of Harry Potter as well, because they talk about, Order of Merlin, because it's a wizard school. um
Right.
but Dumbledore is basically Merlin with another name, if you think about it.
I mean, he's got the cool beard.
Yeah,
He's got the hat. So he's got all these symbols, but yeah, Merlin is even within the modern genre of these types, so to speak, is referenced as he's like the OG, the
yeah,
original wizard or what have you. There's a very popular series of books that I read called the Dresden Files, which they're kind of like a modern interpretation of gritty Harry Potter esque adult versions. Anyway, it's urban fantasy, but the head of the Wizards Council is Merlin, and he's lived for thousands and thousands of years. So that he's never really gone away. He's always kind of been there in the shadows, in the background, and that kind of tags along with the the story of Merlin in King Arthur, was that he didn't die. He just kind of went to sleep, went away, and just like Arthur would come again in time of need. So
yeah.
we're never going to get rid of that guy. He's going to always be there, leading somebody, leading some hero down the garden path, and teaching them the way to go.
And that is sort of a trope that sort of follows those other characters as well. I'm thinking of Gandalf, where he does eventually actually leave, but if you look at when he's really supposed to fit that archetype of the sort of Merlin wizard, which is in The Hobbit,
Right.
he's there and then he disappears for a while, and then he comes back just when he's needed. So it kind of follows along that same path.
Right. And that's kind of the job. They introduce the hero with a thousand faces, the where they discuss the hero's journey and explain it. It introduces the hero to the magical world, and he gives advice and information along the way that helps the hero complete their journey, but is not there all the time. He's kind of just comes in at need, or to give timely advice and counsel, or what have you. So that's kind of like the wandering wizard that Gandalf is. He's always showing up at precisely the right time, you know
Which
to
now it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense why when uh, I think when I read The Hobbit, and probably why when most kids read The Hobbit, if they've been introduced to Merlin through Disney's Sword in the Stone, they probably immediately love Gandalf, because he is, there's another level to these characters, which they have the magic, they're there to basically help and train, but they're also sort of father figures as well, and there's something
absolutely.
very soothing and paternal about them.
Absolutely. And sometimes that archetype or that type of character can be broken down into more than one character, as you say. There's
Mhm.
like there's the fatherly figure, but also like the wiser mentor, or you can have more than one magical mentor who kind of leads you on the path, because sometimes your mentors die along the way. I mean, if you want to look at how George R. R. Martin kind of breaks this trope down as well, has he has several of his protagonists. They'll have their magical mentor, but they'll only have them for a time, or
Yeah.
someone will pass, and another will take its place. You can look at characters like Maester Aemon, who is probably just, I mean, in my opinion, is probably closest to that archetype that George writes about. in his, mentorship with Jon Snow, and how he gives him advice and counsel about how to deal with, the threat of the White Walkers. So, he supports him in his, he doesn't introduce him to the magical world. John kind of stumbles into it as it is, but he kind of gives him wise counsel along the way on how to deal with this existential threat. So, and he kind of breaks it down a little bit that way.
Yeah.
So you don't always, he's not always there, but then, someone else can come along to fill those shoes, so to speak, or to just, to give that type of counsel. Like, for example, in Arya's journey, she has several mentors along the way who kind of help her to find her magical path. And the jacket between, Jack and Hagar and the kindly man, who are actually, the show was one way, but the books are different. They're actually two different people.
Yeah, so I think the kindly man really, the kindly man especially shows George sort of subverting that whole thing, because he does kind of, just the name, the kindly man, suggests this idea of an older man, maybe with a long beard and that type of thing. But he's like, he's not the kindly wizard.
He's not the kindly old guy who sits at the corner and gives sage advice, to some to some kid selling comic books or what have you. No, he's kind of scary.
He's basically the horror version of that. So.
Right. And there is a horror, or I should say, maybe not a horror version, but there is an inverted version of that magician archetype, which is called the shadow magician. And they are, characters like, I'll just throw like the big one out. It's like Palpatine from Star Wars, how he's this shadowy figure with all this power, and that's his main motivating his main motivation is the achievement of ultimate power and perverting his gifts in such a way, to achieve that goal.
Palpatine is the, one of the most obvious embodiments of like an evil wizard, which goes back. Wait a second, is this a wizard just?
His mum, Prestidigitodium.
Oh my God. He's missing a hat.
Well, we have our own timely wizard.
I am not late, nor am I early. Yada yada yada. How is it?
Yada yada.
We're doing great.
And thanks for joining us today, Stephen. We're talking, and I know you love talking about the hero's journey and things like Star Wars. And the Song of Ice and Fire.
Do you like Star Wars, Stephen?
Yeah.
I hear that he does.
For those of you that don't know me, yes. My beard is doing a little bit weird thing.
It's all that extra.
Okay, I'll just sit here and play with it for a minute. How are you, friends? We're talking about Merlin, right?
We're talking about Merlin and Merlin types. So yeah. And all you need is like a funny hat, man. And you could just be rocking the whole image.
I've got a few of those. But yeah, Merlin is like, he is the archetype of that of the wise old man that gives the hero the call to action.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Hold on a second.
And like that, he was gone, and he'll reappear when he's needed.
And when he's at precisely the right moment to turn the tide, of course. So.
Oh,
hi. I don't know what this is.
Hi.
I don't know what that is.
Ultra strong styling gel.
Oh, thank you.
Just got a glimpse of the wizard's mother.
Do wizards have moms? I don't know. I think they just kind of appear out of nowhere. I mean, they were some woman somewhere. Merlin had a mom. His mom was of royalty, and his birth was one of those supernatural type things, whereas the legendary, Merlin
But when was
story is that.
but but when was his mother born? Because if he is moving backwards through time,
I mean,
But
she
is
had to be born somewhere.
time? Okay, that's one of the pitfalls I think about this type of character. The more you know about Merlin's backstory, the less interesting he becomes, if you ask me.
yeah.
He is meant to
Hmm.
be mysterious, to already be super wise, so that when he gives the call to action to the hero, he can give him the sage advice he needs and sends them on their way. He is not meant to be the protagonist himself, not really.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And then when you do have those type origin stories for Merlin, I mean, they're nice, they're great. I've enjoyed them, especially um, Mary Stewart's version of like the Crystal Cave and what have you. And it does kind of give a an interesting background to him, but not the be all to end all. When you pull the curtain away, and the wizard is revealed to just be this,
Well,
this guy operating some equipment. Hint, yes, the Wizard of Oz is another face of Merlin.
but
Um,
I think also it's I don't know. I think you can do versions of Merlin because it's all about sort of the different doing different tales and different versions. It's funny you're saying that, Stephen, but one of my favorite versions of Merlin is the 1998 miniseries, which is called Merlin, and it's all about him. But that's a very specific version of Merlin. It's like
right.
it's not like you're going into the Sword and the Stone and detailing that version's past. um
Yeah.
I think the miniseries version, sort of reshapes the legend so that he is the protagonist of his story. But I think it does it in a compelling way. So
Yeah, but
I
he's
don't.
not the Merlin character in his own story in that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Merlin is like as we said, he's the archetype. Merlin is a like fictional character, but it's also a role that's played. It's when you break it down, the name, the Merlin itself comes from Myrthen, which is a Welsh name, and has to do with like a this role that was played as a mentor or an advisor to kings, and to give who gave wise counsel. It was a title and not a proper name. So Myrthen was the king's advisor. Merlin is a guy who filled that role, or is derived from the character that filled that role. So yeah. And when you look at this is especially true in say Star Wars, which I think we all have a love for. It's this um progression of mentor to apprentice, and each one takes on the role of Merlin at some particular time. For from Yoda all the way down to Luke. They
Obi-Wan
all.
is like the classic
Obi-Wan.
Merlin.
He is the classic, the most prevalent example, I think, in Star Wars that fills that role. The wise old kooky guy who's lived out in the desert and just invades this farm boy's life and pulls him into this greater world outside of himself.
Well,
Imparting this knowledge of life.
especially for that first film, which is the original Star Wars is a fairy tale through and through. Um, and so he very much fits in with that. He is Merlin, he's Gandalf, he's any version of that you want to call him. And that's the movie that also has you got the farm boy, you got the princess, it's all these archetypes of a fairy tale fantasy movie. And which is why I always prefer to say it's far more fantasy than science fiction. But
Yeah, I have to
yeah.
agree with you, John.
I
And
agree
as
with
far
that.
as like even on a one-to-one comparison, you have this magical person who knows the true history and the like who Luke actually is. He hid him away to be raised, like have a normal life, and then to keep him safe from not just his father but his father's enemies. And it's just so much more of a one-to-one than most.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about the Sword in the Stone early on, and Yogi just said the Sword in the Stone is the best Merlin movie, and I agree. I loved that movie when I was a kid. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but
I just watched it last night, and I'm very happy I did.
I'm guessing
Right.
it holds up well.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's
It's timeless. It's timeless. Oh, we've got some. Yep. Yeah. So since we've kind of established what we were doing, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, also just still talking about the Sword in the Stone, like Stephen, I was amazed at how much they pack into that movie in its short run time. It's like, I think in the last 10 minutes, there's like 3 different set pieces.
Yeah.
And it flows beautifully.
What I like a lot about that movie is that it just doesn't cram Merlin into this role as, he's just this guy who's got super magical powers. He's also kind of like a tinkerer, an engineer. He uses his mind and his brain and his hands to make, he's got all these gadgets and things, which is kind of pretty cool, because he's not just a one-dimensional type person.
Yeah, no, and that's what's fun about him, and that's I think why I've loved the character since I was a kid because of that movie, and because he's sort of serious about he's raising Arthur to be someone great, and he's trying to inspire him, but he's also just so funny and goofy, and yeah, and by the way, like he's not the focal point of the stream, but I just want to give a shout out to Archimedes because I love that owl.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, every wizard needs a talking owl. So, in my humble opinion.
Again, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but if I remember correctly, at some point, Merlin literally time travels to the future and then comes back near the end of the story, basically saying the modern world is messed up. How much you want to bet?
Actually, no, what happens is he gets mad at Arthur, and so he takes off to Bermuda. And but then he returns just in time. He knows about all the stuff in the future because he's lived back, he
literally time travels in the movie, and he comes back and even says something like, "What a modern muddle." And he's wearing like Bermuda shorts, and he's got a camera on his neck.
Yeah, but he's wearing those shorts for the whole movie. If you look at when his robe floats up, he's just got shorts on.
Okay.
And it's hilarious.
Well, I think he went to the future, specifically 2020, and then came back in time and said, I ain't staying there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. We do live in the worst timeline.
We do.
If I was a time traveling wizard, I would probably could find a better place to hang out on the beach and drink my time.
Sanry's roasting me in the chat.
Oh,
thanks, bud. Because when I wore my Leanna cosplay, I had a pair of shorts on underneath. Not because I'm afraid of, not because I'm a never nude, because dresses don't have pockets, and I have a wallet and a phone and cigarettes and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
I think you just weren't willing to commit.
I hear you. I hear you, man. I have made the same complaints about women's fashion for years. Never, ever do they have proper pockets. So right. I feel the pain, man. I feel the pain. Yeah, people talking about Bermuda, your mom. Oh my God, Bermuda. That's funny. Oh, well, wrong one. Yeah.
Anyway, so
But yeah,
as I was
go
thinking
ahead.
about this, you can kind of equate Merlin to any character in a story who provides that sort of like the wise mentor role, especially one who has knowledge that is outside the norm of society. Like I put forth Mr. Miyagi is a Merlin type character.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
I was like I was thinking about this before we went on. There's actually a wide swath of characters you could bring in, even like, it's kind of an inversion of this because he becomes the villain by the end of the film. But even somebody like Liam Neeson in Batman Begins fills that kind of role where
I was
he
gonna, yeah, I was gonna put forth the professor from Back to the Future.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
You
definitely,
know, I mean, the crazy hair
absolutely.
and the
Although
meddling with
he's a,
forces beyond,
he's a
normal
little bit more
people, and
protagonist than Merlin often is portrayed, because really Merlin stays mysterious. Doc Brown, not that mysterious, very weird for sure, and he's a welcome spin on that type of character. To me, I mean, Marty McFly is not the reason those movies are great. I mean, Michael J. Fox is great in it, sure, but it's Doc Brown that makes those movies, right?
But you could say the same about The Sword and the Stone. Merlin is what makes that movie great.
You probably right. Well, and as those of us who sort of consume this type of storytelling, we recognize the parallels in all of it. And as you say, Nessie, it's a very fantasy storytelling trope to have this type of. Bye, Amy.
right, right. It is embedded, not just, I mean, fantasy, but nerd culture, because we're like, we want to look beyond, the mundane, ordinary world is just kind of like vanilla yogurt, you know. And we need that. We need that magic in our lives to give it color, to give it flavor. I mean, George Martin said it best, and I don't have the quote, but fantasy is azure and all these flavors and colors, and the modern world is like going to Costco and picking up groceries.
Right.
We just want and crave that little bit of magic in our lives, just to
Well, and it becomes
give
fun
it a
to
little life.
imagine. It becomes fun to imagine what would I do with that type of ability, and that's why having a Merlin whose abilities are clearly very profound, but are also very poorly defined, it just lets the human imagination kind of run wild, which is why he's such an enduring character, because he's not limited to XYZ set of abilities.
Yeah, he's so mysterious. He can pull off, okay, we need X thing to be done. Merlin can do it. Of course he can, because we say he has that ability now, or he can
I
find it
just
out, what have you.
I just had a realization, by the way. We have a Ravenclaw, a Gryffindor, and a Hufflepuff talking about a Slytherin,
As you do,
as one does.
as one does. Yeah, as one does. So, yeah, I mean, like we were discussing that earlier, that even within fantasy books or movies, Merlin is still that fantasy person. He exists in somewhere in the history of the lexicon. So even to other wizards, he's like the this mysterious
Well,
force.
well, and like I don't know very much in the way of specifics, but I do know that canonically Merlin is in House Slytherin, and it's just interesting to see to think about why that might be. I think, is it his ambition? Because he seems to be a pretty ambitious character in that he's trying to shape the future of a nation.
Right. Right.
But
And
that's
involving
really
himself.
that's really interesting to me because like I didn't know that was the case because I guess I haven't read the books enough. So but yeah, I had no idea about that, and certainly the Merlin of Sword the Stone does not seem like he would be a Slytherin. So
No, that's a very
Well, let
Ravenclaw take on him, I think.
me.
but
Yeah, Merlin was, I think Merlin in that particular genre was like pre houses being formed or whatnot. But if he were to have been placed in a house, I think that's what was decided, that he would have been a Slytherin. And having political ambition, having wanting to be within the halls of power, but maybe not, you know, being the person in charge. Yeah, or maybe sometimes being the person in charge, because the thing about Merlin is they have all this power, but they are using their powers for the good of all, not for personal gain, which is why when you have the flip side to that, the shadow magician is where you have people like Voldemort or Palpatine or what have you, where they take all of that magical potential and turn it to their own gain. So that's what makes or breaks the character itself, is how they have all this magic, but how they use it. So the tug of war between someone like Yoda and Palpatine over the soul of Luke Skywalker is like pivotal for Empire Strikes Back.
and actually this isn't strictly a Star Wars stream, but going back to what you were saying before, Stephen, about kind of the more you know about Merlin as sort of the Merlin archetype, the less fascinating he is. I sort of feel that way about Palpatine in Return of the Jedi, where we don't really know anything about him, but he's this
Right.
sort of dark wizard figure. And I think that's what kind of makes him so fascinating in that movie, because he's shrouded in mystery.
Right. Right. We're introduced to this dark evil sorceress figure, not knowing anything about him. We just know, yeah, yeah, he's obviously the bad guy. He's obviously got all of this. He's perpetuating all of this evil, out in the galaxy and what have you. And he's set against, people we know to be good. We know this to be good, even though later we find out that everybody's kind of
Forgive my ignorance. I'm not a scholar of these things the way you are, Nessie. But the Arthurian legend has its own dark sorcerer in Morgan Le Fay. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks. But there's two sides to Morgana, depending on who wrote the story, and that has a lot to do with Catholic bias and what have you. But in the original version, the oldest versions that we have, has Morgana playing more of a fairy queen, or you know a magical aid. She gives magical aid to the protagonists, whether it be Lancelot or Arthur or what have you. Kind of more closely akin to the Lady of the Lake, as opposed to this evil witch sorceress that she is portrayed later as being the mother of Mordred, and she brings about the destruction of Avalon. I mean of Camelot.
Who would have guessed that
We're
Catholic
going to get into that. We'll get into that. No spoilers for the next episode, please.
Okay. I don't want to spoil it. Yeah. We'll save it.
Yeah.
Save it. Let Erin do her thing.
I will just say,
Drake.
Yeah.
Drake.
But yeah, you see that and this is keeping it, on Merlin as well. I promise I won't talk too much about Morgana. I'll leave that, but it is in different film versions as well, where you have in certain films, Merlin and Morgana are antagonists toward each other, and like I'm thinking especially versions of the story like Excalibur, and also the version I like, the Merlin miniseries. They're very much enemies.
Mm-hmm. Right, and recently in the Netflix miniseries or show that they did for, it was called Cursed. You have Merlin playing a role in there that is antagonistic to the Nimue, the female protagonist. Um, and in that series, he's very much about consolidating power, regaining power, stealing power, or what have you. He's somehow lost his, but yeah. So there's that antagonistic nature between, those two roles sometimes. Yeah. No, Sanrixian loved the cursed version of Merlin. Yeah, he was one of the character, the actor that portrays that character always plays a great role. He plays Floki in Vikings. He's one of the Skarsgårds, not the handsome one.
Mm.
He's the one who always looks like, hey, I've been tripping drugs real hard. So, but yeah,
Danny McCain, okay. Who wins in a duel between Raistlin Majir from Dragonlance and Snape? I'm going to say Raistlin, and I don't even think it's particularly close.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with you because Raistlin was badass,
Yeah.
I'm so okay. So I wasn't sure if, like, of course it's Dragonlance, and so of course that Dungeons and Dragons territory. So of course Stephen would know about Raistlin. I don't even know why that was a question in my head.
Yeah,
like I love that character.
John, that's what I do. I master the dungeon, and I know things. So
yeah. And
I just want to say, like, because after I read Lord of the Rings, I was very much looking for more fantasy fiction to read, and a lot, a lot of fantasy is in the realm of sort of copying a lot from Tolkien, but I kind of was like, I'm fine with that.
right.
And Dragonlance really sort of scratched that itch that I had for more fantasy after reading Lord of the Rings, and oh my God, Raistlin was just such an amazing character because, like, he's powerful, but he's so freaking duplicitous, and yeah, he's horrible. but
he's a horrible person
because he is a main player in the story. He is not the wise mentor giving sage counsel and teaching a lost art. Now, this is a man that can pierce through time, coming for your power, no matter what it is, so that he can add it to his power.
Yeah, he's more of the shadow wizard or the shadow magician that we were discussing earlier, where it's all about a amalgamation of power for their own ends. And speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what Stephen knows and does, the fingerprint of Merlin is very heavy. I feel like in the Dungeons and Dragons world.
Okay,
I mean,
it is and it isn't. If you go back to the early stuff, you're going to feel a lot more of that presence of the wizard who is an apprentice is very weak and not powerful at all. But once you have played a character for a long time and your wizard becomes very high level, the earlier the addition of D&D, the greater that sort of the slope of that curve is. Now it's fairly even progression with all the classes, but the old school wizard was weak as hell at the beginning of the game and stronger than anybody had a right to be at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Which reflected that ability of Merlin to be that thing that could do stuff that nobody else could even touch, couldn't even get close. But by necessity, any player character in Dungeons and Dragons is not going to be fulfilling a Merlin archetype because they are a main protagonist of the story. Um, they're not the one passing on the secret knowledge to someone else or trying to advise the up and comer. By the and to be honest with you, it's hard to have a Merlin character in a D&D type story because you want the characters there to feel like they're the ones who are coming up with solutions and they're the ones who are overcoming the obstacle instead of just some guy who can wave his hand and make, a wizard did it and everything's better now because I waved my hand and the magic did the thing. So it's really hard to put something in there in that sweet spot, and it holds true for all forms of storytelling. That's what D&D is. It's called collaborative storytelling. But if you're writing a story, you've got to be careful not to put. Again, he's at his most powerful when he's mysterious, when he shows up at just the right time with just the right piece of information or what have you, and alters the hero's course towards their ultimate victory.
Right. I mean, you could have like that non-player character role occasionally, like drop in a little tidbit of knowledge, or hiring the party to send them out to send them out onto their quest, or what have you. Maybe give them some aid and comfort after they've been had the shit beat out of them, or things like that. But what I was kind of more getting at is, just the fact that you've got this wide range of magic users in this role playing game. Had we not had this archetype of Merlin, to begin with, we, how, just having magic as part of it is
The classic image of the wizard does derive 100% from Merlin. There is no, I mean, okay, I'm not a literary scholar, so somebody check my facts here, but I know of no character that fits that archetype in that way before Merlin. The robes, the pointy hat with the stars on it, and the magic wand or the staff, like all those trappings of what is the classical wizard derived from Merlin and no other source.
Right. He's kind of the amalgamation of all these little different things, from the classical era, or from, pagan mythology or what have you. And those roles were always filled by, gods or goddesses, or, some emissary from the gods. But
which is funny because Gandalf
not a
is
human character. Merlin is a quote human character that has transcended and become that bridge for mortals between the divine and the mundane. So he straddles that bridge.
and it's funny because Gandalf is in fact a messenger from the gods. So it's sort of mixing those two things together.
Yes,
and in fact, one of the, and that's a way in which Gandalf does kind of diverge from the Merlin character, less so in The Hobbit and more so in Lord of the Rings. He advises, but he's not always pulling out the magic, which I think separates him.
With the Balrog.
Right. Well, there's a few instances where we see Gandalf use his magic, especially like in the Fellowship of the Ring, we see it the most, I think. But
but it's very reserved. It
is still very reserved. It's the Balrog. It's that sort of like commanding presence. Well, and he's using magic when he tells Bilbo he's not some conjurer of cheap tricks. The way.
Right. Yeah. He kind of pulls the mask back a little bit.
Yeah. He grows and seems to fill up the whole room, and he's still lit and the voice is booming, but everything else is dark. That's magic. There's, if I could pull that off, it'd be awesome. But
where they do still overlap greatly is that even if, Merlin as a character might use, I think, a bit more magic, but their main goal really is to sort of influence events and and guide
Mhm.
characters towards fulfilling their
Right.
destiny, so to speak. And I mean, yeah, it's and then that's why Gandalf was such an immediately, wonderful character, is because he pops up on the screen and he's, he's telling your, main character, I'm going to send you on an adventure, which is like what everybody kind of secretly wants.
Oh, wonderful.
Bilbo's not particularly happy about it in the moment, but there's a part of him underneath that wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and he's just secretly thinking, "Hey, wizard, can you just whip up like, a cleaning spell for all these pots and pans that I'm constantly washing? Can you do that? That would be helpful." You
Did that happen
you know,
in
to
Sword in the Stone?
I think that
Yeah,
happened in Sword in Stone.
yeah, yeah.
Wart got in trouble for that because, he didn't do it himself. Very
And then,
valuable lesson on how to use and not
but
use
then
your
it,
magic,
but then,
you
then it
know.
goes a little wrong, and then we get Sir Ector coming in and going, Marvin, what are you up to? Sorry, I'm
Marvin, yeah.
I just feel like reciting all these lines from Sword in the Stone because I just watched it. But oh my god, that's such a fun movie.
Yeah, but it does teach a lesson there because, like Mickey in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, he kind of finds himself in the same spot. He had all these
Mm-hmm.
things to clean, and you've got you use the easy way, you take the easy way out, you use magic to do, your mundane chores. It can get away from you. It can cause chaos and get out of hand. Where you can't control it anymore. It's that sword without a hilt thing. You got to learn how to, you know, when to use it and when not to use it because you could, cut yourself either way. So, very valuable lesson for both Wart and Mickey. Wash your own dishes.
Mm-hmm. Unlike Reflective Ramblings uh, observation that she just posted.
Let me
Um,
pop that up on the screen for everybody to
yeah,
see.
I love that interpretation as well because the Fae are
Yeah,
magical. There is a question of where does your magic come from? What is the source of it? And as I think the traditional image of a wizard learning from a book that we have is a slightly later edition than, say, Lamorte Arthur, because that image of the sort of scholar bent over his tome, writing things, reading things, it, it didn't come about until reading and writing was more ubiquitous.
hmm
So, which is why the early Merlin was probably be he a Fae. The original character may have even been more like a druid.
right.
What we might think of in the
Some
the modern terms of a druid, anyway, which is like a nature
correct.
mystic.
Well, like we were saying earlier, he was kind of this amalgamation of all these types of people from the a druid or the vizier, like that would stand at the side of the king and or leader and give wise counsel. The shaman figure, the wild man in the woods. All of these kind of come together and kind of coalesce. A little bit here, a little bit from there. This person who lived his life outside of the confines of civilization, but yet has all this power and comes into and within the halls of power with that. So it's sort of like an emissary from not only the magical world but from the natural world as well. So, which those two are always very close and very closely aligned, the magical world and the natural
And
world.
we see this idea of not just drawing, magic from words in a book, but from nature itself. And in a lot of modern fantasy stories, in Game of Thrones, you've got the idea of, only death can pay for life, and then you go over to The Witcher, and there's a
There's a
sort of,
cost.
there's a cost for everything, and we're demonstrated that with lifting the rock, but then the plant fades, or in one case, you know,
Hmm.
uh, somebody's hand withers away, and so yeah, I like that we see a lot of that in some modern fantasy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, there's always a cost.
this for that.
Mhm.
Because balance, nature, and as magic being like this force of nature, it always demands that there's a balance paid in some type of way. Otherwise, the other forces become out of balance. Like we see the seasons are out of balance on Game of Thrones. We see that the Fae are dying off in like The Witcher. There's always a cost when you use this type of magic that someone or somewhere, whether you pay it or nature itself is paying the cost. Ain't nothing for free, my friends. Nothing's for free.
So in other words,
Yeah,
somebody is casting some really heavy magic over the past year.
I
Well, I
hope it's
mean,
I hope it's a spell of like future awesomeness. I guess. Got to pay the
I'd
price
just
now.
be happy. I'd be happy with a heavy cleansing spell. That would be great. Just
I cast Fixed World. Anyway.
yep.
Um, I had
Well,
a
we
thought.
kind of have been going. Well, let's take a break for a second because we've been going at
Okay.
this for right at an hour. I'd like to go ahead and do the mid roll here. Now I don't have patrons and I don't have sponsors or what have you. Somebody will sponsor me one day. But what I do like to do now is to take a few minutes to thank everyone who's taken time out of their day to come and spend it with us here at the Unspun Yarn. We've got Jordy Jedi. Hi, great to see you. I see a lot of our across the pond friends are here with us today. Emma Smith is here, Reflective Rambling. All hail the Night's Queen. Kate Bertinsky. Oh, our lovely friend Sandrixian, of whom, yes, I am rocking the Night's Watch shirt. Yes. Oh, hey, leggings as well. Danny McKay, Lady Leaf Underhill. Oh, and let's see, who else have we got? Sontavia Major, OTDA, Amy Blackfire,
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't see
and
OTDA.
through the moon door. Lots of friends from across the water today at this European friendly time.
Yeah, I'm not
So
as friendly to Americans. A lot of folks are probably still at work, but haha,
yeah.
not us.
Yeah, we all just kind of had the day off today and it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
So yeah, hope you enjoy the content. If you do, hit the thumbs up. That'd be great. Even better, hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment. The YouTube algorithm loves these things. So
Y'all better hit that
yeah.
subscribe button.
Yeah, like and
Anyway,
subscribe.
thank you all for coming and spending some of your afternoon with us. So, John, what do you got coming up in the next few weeks?
Okay, so this coming Saturday at 7 p.m., we're doing something a little bit different on John Webster Film. Amy and I will be joined by the lovely Kate Bertinsky to talk about the film Mean Girls, which I've never seen before. So I'm about to watch it tomorrow night as one of our Slack watch parties. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, we're being joined by Kelly, Jaded Redhead, and Amy's friend Jenna to talk about we're supposed to be talking about the first X-Men film from 2000, but really we're just going to be talking about X-Men all over the place. And then the week after that, Steven's going to be joining us along with Cecilia from Geeks Aurelia, and we're going to be talking about the film Pan's Labyrinth, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So yeah, go ahead and check us out and subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for that.
Right on.
John Webster Film, guys. You need to make sure you're watching that. Great stuff. What about you, Steven? Other than being on John's channel to talk about Pan's Labyrinth, which I've seen, by the way. Finally saw that movie.
Well, okay. So tomorrow I'm running Dungeons and Dragons for Red Team. Monday I'm running Dungeons and Dragons for Green Team. Oh, you mean other than that? Sunday.
Well, I mean, those are important to me.
Sunday is Cobra Kai. Now, seeing as how neither one of you have watched that show, and I love it. And
season 1.
Okay, but you're still not even like you need to catch up. John, I would recommend you watch it, but you know, it is what it is. But I am going to have Cecilia from Geeks Aurelia back. She's becoming a regular contributor over here on Between the Lot of Us. Also, a Twitter mutual, Fofo Rivera, will be joining us, and I managed to crowbar Braun Steris out of his hole, and he will be joining us as well. And ostensibly, it's season 3 talk, but we're probably going to talk about the whole show. It's probably more of a full-blown fandom spotlight thing where we won't go too deep into anything. We'll just cover it all kind of surface level. And I literally don't even know what's the week after that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know
I think we're going to talk about some WandaVision. Isn't that?
Yes, but like, I'm not even sure what the release schedule for that looks like. And I'm probably going to want to build up like, what? One a week and just one the first week?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably like wait 3 weeks or so before we actually do the first WandaVision.
Yeah. We need to figure out some content.
I've got and I know that nerd I'm going to reach out to, so we'll see. I hate to cut you guys off on. Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. Is what the short answer.
Oh no, Steven, don't give me time off. Don't do that.
You're already getting 1 week. I'm not giving you 2 weeks off in a row. That beard draws the ladies in, and we need it. We need the help.
Yeah, yeah. The beard does increase the YouTube algorithm.
Oh, and I'll be on John's channel at the end of the month to talk about Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah,
awesome. Great.
I think I lose subscribers whenever I shave the beard. So.
Oh, Sanri, you don't know what WandaVision is. It is a Disney Plus show about Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, and the Vision from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It looks like old school TV. It's trippy and weird. All the early reviews are resoundingly positive. It looks really kind of just weird in all the right ways. So yeah, that's
weird and wonderful and right up our alley.
And of course, the thing that gets me the most excited is it paying homage to all those old, TV shows. So everybody else is probably going to be like, when can we get to the heavy Marvel stuff? And I'm like, no. Let me just bask in the glory of all this early stuff.
Oh yeah, the old black and whites, man, with the the old black and white television shows. I think the trailer that I saw, it looks almost exactly the same as the kitchen set on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Almost down to the countertop.
I almost made it. Like, her early drawings didn't have the beard, and now, son of a bitch.
And now you're stuck with it forever. Immortalized, as it were.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got to have the beard, man. Just the scruff. The scruff is fine.
Yeah, the scruff, man.
Yeah.
Just the scruff. All right. So we were talking about Merlin, who also has an epic beard.
He does. It's one of the things. It's one of those features that just keeps getting transferred on to that type of character. The pointy hat, the beard, the staff, the robes.
Yeah, I'm kind of halfway waiting for like a little dormouse or something to pop out of that beard, one day. Or not yours, Stephen. Your beard is
You
awesome.
talking about my
Well,
It's not that awesome today. My beard is being weird today, but
Weird beard
you know,
day.
we all have bad hair days. Just today, the hair happens to be
Stephen,
like
that beard is always epic. Don't you worry.
Yeah, well, Finnegan is alive and well and coming along
Oh.
nicely.
I see it, Rock. I see it. It's coming in.
And it's very soothing, Rock. Like, we love you regardless, but it was a bit disconcerting for a little bit.
Yeah, and not just to everyone else, to me.
Oh, I bet it was worse for you.
It was traumatic, very.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to look at it every morning in the mirror.
You couldn't do your epic Merlin cosplay anymore.
No.
No. Mm-mm. No.
Are you done with your stream?
Oh no, we're live, baby.
Oh, you're live.
Yeah.
I'm not-
Say
yeah,
hello to
we're
all
live,
of our We're talking about Merlin today.
Sort of.
Did you bring up what we talked about the other night
No, what?
with the Bigfoot deal?
Oh, how Bigfoot, one of the origin
Something to
things.
do with Merlin.
One of these
Bigfoot and Merlin, man.
theories of who Bigfoot is and where he come from was, what was the guy's name?
Mirthan.
Was Merlin, because he was this hairy dude who lived in the wild and he was giant, didn't do well with humans.
Like the wild man in the woods archetype. We see that as well with in Gilgamesh with his sidekick in Kaido, who's this forest guy. He's a big giant guy. He hangs out, gives him wise counsel. So that's kind of where he's coming from. But yeah, Merlin could have been a Bigfoot. Who knows? We never see his feet. I don't
Well,
know.
then I think he's a merman.
Everybody else is just silent.
Yeah. So there you have
We
it.
never-
Have some tinfoil anyway.
If we never see his feet, could he also be a merman? I'm just throwing that out there.
He could. We never see the feet. So yeah. Speaking of mermen and never seeing their feet, and Varys is kind of like that Merlin archetype as well. Not the positive.
Oh, did she freeze up?
Yes, she did.
Oh, poor Nessie.
I cast Time Stop. Yeah, she'll be back, and we'll just keep talking about Merlin.
Yeah, what she was saying. Do you think that Varys fits in with that type of role?
No, I think what she's more talking about is the way you never see Varys's feet, and he's always described as like, which is why some people think he's a merman, because of all the fish imagery he keeps paddling, and oh, there she goes.
Oh,
Kicked her off of her own stream.
wow. Yeah,
I bet she'll be back.
Like, I don't know what to do now. I mean, I know like I do my own stream every week, but like this feels weird.
I think we'll make do. She trusts us to keep the ball rolling. So I cast Time Stop, then I cast Banishment. And now I'm going to cast Gaint and see if I can get her back in.
Okay.
All my D&D nerds out there are dying laughing right now. Which is... but
Aaron, you turned up too late. You missed a very important conversation.
Yes,
I think
his slippers, reflective rambling, but you never see his feet.
Well, yeah, but I think if we see the slippers, that's close enough. Yeah, I feel like Aaron was probably summoned by the talk about my beard.
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to move over to talk some Obi-Wan?
Sure, because he is, well, at least in Star Wars, like Star Wars full stop 1977 film, he is just about as Merlin as it comes. Doesn't have a pointy hat, but he's got a gray beard. Not an epic beard, but got the gray beard. He's got the robes. He's hermity. He definitely has magical powers. He definitely provides a call to action. He's as Merlin as it gets.
Yeah, and it's like we think of like his attire in the first Star Wars as like typical Jedi attire now, but at the time, like none of that was established. So he just sort of, it comes out of nowhere, and he's wearing this robe. He's got this hood on, and the way he pulls back, it's very, everything about him is very much he's a wizard.
Yeah, he's a space wizard, but he's definitely a wizard. He even gives him a magic freaking sword, which obviously Merlin doesn't give Arthur Excalibur, but like it's condensed that way probably for storytelling purposes, trying to fit it all into one film. But yeah, and Luke Skywalker's very much a King Arthur archetype in a lot of ways. And I know this isn't a King Arthur
yeah, but I mean,
podcast,
you talk about Merlin, by extension, you really do have to talk about Arthur, and Luke does fit that mold very well. But yeah, I just, again, it's part of what's so great about the original Star Wars, so much as some of the other movies are fantastic, and I think you and I agree definitely that Empire is the strongest film in the saga, but there's something about the original that, again, it's such a fairy tale, and I like the fact that we get moments like the wizard giving this magical sword to to an Arthur figure, and there's just something about you're destined to do this, and all that stuff. It really speaks to that part of me that loves those legends and fairy tales, and yeah, it's just a joy to watch, especially within the trappings of science fiction.
And you say fairy tales, and it literally like links back to Merlin and his sort of older interpretation, as Reflective Rambling was pointing out a moment ago, that he seemed more like a fae type creature than a real, like what we might interpret as the modern wizard. Although later interpretations of Merlin definitely gave rise to that modern wizard archetype. His origin as a fae character puts it very much in fairy tale territory.
Yeah. This is interesting. I wouldn't really have considered that. But no, I mean, I would actually, if you take in the full scope of the story, I would actually say that, if any lightsaber was Excalibur, I would personally think it would be Anakin's lightsaber, just given how it's passed down through the generations.
Yeah, the Skywalker saber. Yeah. Although it's not my favorite lightsaber.
No. Which one is your favorite, Steven?
It's Luke's green one.
Yeah. That's the one I had as a kid, and like you can't beat it. It's like there's just something about when he shows up in Return of the Jedi, all in black with that green lightsaber, and the design is so cool. I really like the way it looks, and just something about being a kid and running around outside pretending you're Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of love for Luke's green. Yeah. It's my favorite. What can I say? But Luke Skywalker's my guy. It shouldn't surprise anybody to hear that his lightsaber is my favorite. But I also agree that like there is something maybe special about that particular lightsaber. Um, because it was Obi-Wan's, because it was Luke's, and
Or
it makes
well, it was Anakin's and then Luke's and then and then it becomes of such importance in the sequel stories too. It gets
Mhm.
handed down to Rey, and
and fought
so
over by Kylo, and yeah.
yeah, I think that definitely fits the, if you're looking for an Excalibur type
So
weapon.
who's a better Merlin, Obi-Wan or Yoda? Because they both are fulfilling that role at different points in the story.
And I actually think Qui-Gon fills the role also of a Merlin character. But like,
Maybe. I mean, I feel the only reason I question that is because of how prolific the Jedi are at that point. He doesn't seem like this mysterious person with access to secret knowledge.
yeah, you are right about that. But the way in which he finds Anakin and sort of he sort of says not in so many words, but he says, you're destined to go and do this.
Okay.
He's filling the role of that, but you are right. If you're looking at Merlin as sort of a mysterious figure, Jedi during that time don't really necessarily fit in their role because they're all over the place. But if we're talking about Obi-Wan or Yoda, I don't know. It's like Obi-Wan fits that classical image of a Merlin type character, but Yoda definitely does too. And he's playful, like we sometimes see Merlin portrayed. Hey, Nessie.
Hey, it's like magic. I popped back in. Sorry about that, guys. Apparently, they're working on our um, our Wi-Fi today. They're doing some utility work down the road, and it just shut off on me. So I'm on mobile right now. Yay! Thanks for having a backup plan.
No, I'm gonna push forward. What do you say, Nessie? I think Qui-Gon fits the mold of a
Oh, absolutely,
Merlin character.
especially in the case of Anakin, because
Yeah.
he fills that role like the succession order too, from master to apprentice, because you have
I,
Yoda, who was the master to Dooku, who was the master to Qui-Gon. So yes, he is fulfilling that role,
I guess you're right.
and
My argument
Anakin.
against that, Nessie, I'm sorry. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. My argument against that just a moment ago was that Qui-Gon is not mysterious enough and he doesn't have this secret knowledge to impart because the Jedi are so ubiquitous at this point in the story. But on second thought, I think you are right. From Anakin's point of view, he very much is this mysterious person who knows about, who has mastery over this unknown
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, very, and
And
he just enters, he just comes crashing, literally crashing into this kid's life and changes his life forever. He's the guy who says, "I see something in you. I see something that could be great, and I'm going to take whatever risk that I have to bring you into this magical world of the Jedi Order." So I very much agree with that, with Qui-Gon as that type of fulfilling that type of figure for Anakin.
Fix it.
I went on mobile. I turned my hotspot on.
Ah,
Yeah, always have a backup plan.
always have a backup plan.
So then to bring back Steven's sort of inquiry, so who do we think in Star Wars sort of fits the mold best of the Merlin figure? We were talking about Obi-Wan or Yoda, but why not bring Qui-Gon into that too?
Well,
I
of
think
the three,
all
it's
of
not
them.
Qui-Gon for me.
Yeah. Well, it depends on where in the entire story you're talking about, but I do feel that that all of the master apprentice relationship itself, it fulfills that particular role for the student. So it could be anyone from Yoda, and the fact that Yoda is kind of the instigator or the original master for all of the subsequent through the chain of master to apprentices, and we come back full circle to him in Empire Strikes Back. He just comes back in for Luke in that time of finishing out his training, and also putting him through what would be that version of the Jedi trials, when he sends Luke off to face his dark side, in the tree. So I think in fulfilling that role particularly, Yoda is a strong contender for that.
And I think kind of the point is all of these characters really are different facets of the Merlin archetype, which is kind of the whole point of this. The thing I like about Yoda as that archetype is that he is extremely playful, a la the type of Merlin we see in the Sword and the Stone.
Right.
Kind of, I just love when he's rummaging around Luke's stuff, the flashlight and going.
Yeah, and even in the Star Wars universe, his origin has been the most mysterious out of all of them.
He's still super mysterious character. Like, we don't even know what his species is. We don't know what life was like for him before he was 860 some odd years old. We have no idea.
Right. We don't know where he's from. We don't know anything about his people.
And the fact that he is, maybe not the most powerful Jedi, but definitely the most respected Jedi in the Jedi Order that we know about, period, from anywhere.
Yeah.
He is a legend. People who have never seen Star Wars know who Yoda is.
Yeah, and even when he's talking, he almost he talks the speech pattern that he uses, the Yoda speech pattern. It kind of like this. He's talking in riddles almost, even when he's giving advice and counsel. He has the it's like he poses things almost like a question. Has Luke thinking about things, questioning things, making him think about his decisions and answers, not just feeding him an answer, but making him think and discover things on his own. So I have to strongly agree with Yoda as
and if you look at parallels between it's funny because I keep referencing back to the Sword and the Stone as though that's the original version of the Merlin tale, which it's obviously not, but for me it was. But you can definitely see parallels of the lessons that, the way in which Merlin is imparting lessons onto Arthur, and the way that Yoda is also imparting lessons onto Luke and Empire.
These tasks and things that Yoda has Luke do, or Merlin has Wart do, or Mr. Miyagi has Daniel-san doing the wax on, wax off, these mindless, mundane tasks that it's like, when are you going to teach me how to blow things up? When are you going to teach me how to kick butt? When am I going to do these wondrous things? Why am I balanced? Why am I standing on my head trying to balance and do things? And then it all comes back later as how important those basic and fundamental things are. They may seem like something simple and mundane, but it's the foundation that you build everything else upon. So, yeah.
Yeah. And again, Miyagi really, I think, fits that archetype in almost every way that really matters. He's a little more present in the story than Merlin typically is, and he's obviously not a wizard, but he still has a secret art that is going to give power to the protagonist.
Yeah, he's a kind of wizard. I mean,
He kind of, but like,
It is,
I mean,
because the Eastern philosophies and mental disciplines and things are very much in line with those types of going beyond what is humanly possible by focus and desire and execution. So I would very much put Mr. Miyagi right on the shelf with
and I think that going to what you keep doing about being mysterious, it's like we learn more about Miyagi in the sequels, obviously, but in that first film, he is kind of a figure shrouded in mystery. We don't know that much about him.
yeah, yeah. Everybody just wants to have that maintenance guy that they can go and talk to when they've had a bad day, and they're going to teach them something that's going to make transform their lives, and into something, greater than what they had expected. So, yeah. And were the quote Karate Kid movies, had they been set in like a high fantasy or maybe like a wushu genre, you would really see that type of thing coming forward.
yeah, because again, Eastern storytelling has a lot of different established tropes than Western storytelling, even when it comes to, the fantasy genre exists in all cultures, but, you look at, as you say, wushu films versus something like L'Amour to Arthur. There are similarities, but they're wildly different. I mean, you still have the sort of basic narrative structure, but you do not have a Merlin archetype in Eastern storytelling that you can get. I mean, not going to say never, and I'm certainly not an expert. And Amy's going to come on here next time she's on and tear me a new one for getting it completely wrong. But like, you have the student mentor relationship, but that is different than what Merlin is because of Merlin's quasi divine nature.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at a film like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you've got I for the love of me, I don't remember the characters' names. It's been a while since I watched.
Okay, Lee Mubai was the main character.
That's right. But he's sort of could fit the role of sort of the mentor
Somewhat.
figure, but he's a protagonist in the story, and he doesn't fit into that mold of sort of the mysterious teacher who it's different. It is.
Yeah, he's one of the co-protagonists of the film. And he definitely wants to establish that student-teacher relationship with Jen, played by Shang Ziyi. But yeah, I don't really view him as a Merlin type, and I don't know that Eastern storytelling has many Merlin types.
Right. Well, Merlin is pretty firmly, I believe, like a Western concept. As it serves as the background to in a lot of Western literature and fiction and fantasy. I'm sure there's some cognate of that type of archetype, but as I'm not as familiar with that, I can't really speak upon it. Maybe we'll get Amy on. Maybe I'll get Amy on one day, and I mean, probably really just have to twist her arm, almost out of the
She hates being on live streams, y'all.
Yeah, I don't think
I know. But maybe, maybe I can cajole her, with some wine or whatever, and have her come on, and we'll discuss something along those lines, because I'm sure there's something there. You look at, say, in the concept of, the Arabic stories, you have these magical creatures that are like jinn. If you look at Aladdin, the genie in Aladdin would kind of sort of fit that role, as he's this magical creature who slams into Aladdin's life, and Aladdin doesn't obtain magic for himself, but by his association with the genie, he is allowed to coffins. Yeah.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks. Yeah, he is allowed access to the magical world in that way through his relationship with the genie. So
I do want to. I know we established early on the stream that we were kind of focusing on the traditional sort of masculine archetype of a Merlin or the magician, but also I think another character, and you guys know a little bit about this character, who also fits that role, who is notably female, which makes it really interesting, is Audra from the Dark Crystal.
Mm.
Yeah, she's like the wise woman, who has all of this knowledge of through the realms and the nature of Thra. She's in communicate. See, I did watch. And yeah, she is in her way kind of the feminine or flip side version of Merlin. So that's so
yeah, and I do love how crazy she kind of is allowed to be, going over to those more kooky aspects that we see in Merlin, and as I was talking about before with Yoda, how he's allowed to be a little
playful, a little crazy. They all have to be like a little bit crazy,
I think that's right. Okay, so as this conversation has gone on, I've noticed that my line of what makes a Merlin character and what doesn't has moved several times throughout this conversation. Like, I'm like Mr. Miyagi is, but then he's not according to certain of the metrics that I'm using. Because I really feel like Merlin is that he is unknowable. For me, that's what makes a character a Merlin archetype or what have you, is that they are unknowable. That you don't know their past, you don't know the extent of what they can do, although clearly they can do a whole lot of things that other people cannot do. So, like, by that definition, Miyagi is more like a mentor rather than a Merlin, because Merlin is not a mentor. He's not teaching Arthur magic.
No, he's not teaching Arthur magic, but he's
advising him.
He's advising him and teaching him how to be an effective ruler and a good king, allegedly, and their, by their definition of what makes a good king or what makes an effective ruler. So that, Arthur does not come from like a magical bloodline. He doesn't have that innate ability to become a wizard or to become whatever Merlin is, but he is in the halls of power. He is the mundane face of the magical world, so to speak, and as Merlin is sort of the messenger and the face to the magical world. So he has that advisory role, like this is the divine right to rule in Arthurian legend. It comes from this magical world, and by Merlin being the emissary, so to speak, from this magical world to Aaron M coming in hard. He is the emissary of the magical world, and he's advising the ruler, the sovereign.
Yeah, he's a mentor. He's just not imparting lessons of magic.
Right.
Yeah.
It remains this mysterious force that comes and goes from the story as he's needed by the plot to do.
Right.
Which is different from your normal mentor. A normal mentor is actually very present in the life of the protagonist, the way Mr. Miyagi is. But what makes Merlin unique is the way he breezes in and out of the story at just the right time, with just the right help.
Right.
The way Gandalf.
Yeah. So, Gandalf and even Dumbledore, Dumbledore is present at Hogwarts or, there, but he's not always accessible, to Harry and company, when they're going on their adventures and they're doing their hero type things. he's there kind of in a way of, say, watching over from afar and not interfering with what's going on, except at very key moments, like sending Harry the sorting hat so that he can pull the sword of Gryffindor out, or sending Fox in when he's battling the the basilisk. So he does have those key moments when he intervenes in the story and at times, but mostly he is removed from Harry's day-to-day going about his business. He has other people who are instructing him in in his wizarding and his magic and becoming growing into an adult. There's also that aspect. So he has other mentors besides Dumbledore. So.
I will say, Aaron, I mean, you are right, but I think also the sort of archetype that we're looking at is sort of the not just Merlin as a character, but sort of that sort of Merlin Arthur
dynamic,
sort of mentorship dynamic.
Yeah.
Which
and we're
is
gonna get deep into the weeds on this, Aaron, when you come on in 2 weeks. we're gonna go to town with that.
Yeah, and of course she is absolutely right. Merlin is a mentor figure, but he is unique. He's the first character I know that fills that mysterious. He's less a character and more a plot element.
Yeah.
The way Gandalf is.
I mean, Gandalf literally shows up in the beginning of the story to get the plot moving. It's to
and
get
shows up at the end and go, good job.
Yeah. So are we saying Merlin is the MacGuffin of the fantasy genre? Get out there, kid, and do great things. I believe in you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite lines from the film Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf is like, all I did was give your uncle a little nudge out of the door.
Just a little nudge. But yeah. And we were talking about Harry Potter just a minute ago, and I think in the Philosopher's Stone or what have you, the key thing that Dumbledore does for Harry in that movie is he gives him the Cloak of Invisibility that belonged to his father. Let me impart to you, here, take this gift, use it wisely. So that he takes it and he's using it to sneak all around and find information out for himself, and he doesn't, that's his little bit of, he gives him that magical device, and he's able to go on adventures on his own with his friends. So, and then that's pretty much hands off from there on for what Dumbledore does in the story. Here you go, young man, use it wisely.
Make sure you don't die before it's time.
Yeah, don't die before it's time. We got a few more movies to make.
Right.
So, and I'm wondering if that might also, now that you mentioned it, and brought it up, I wonder too if that's also part of the role that the Merlin character or the archetype plays, is preparing the hero for sacrifice. Because Arthur kind of sacrifices himself at the end of the story to he's fighting this tremendous battle to save and save Britain from being overrun by Saxons. Then you have Gandalf has the burden, imparts the burden onto Frodo to save Middle Earth, and he knows how dangerous a job that's going to be, and there's a huge percentage that he's not going to survive, as Frodo realizes further and further into the story that he's got a job to do, but he may not live to see it, or they saved the Shire, but not for us. That's kind of, or not for him. That's kind of, I think part of Merlin's job is, to prepare the hero for his own sacrifice. Diving way back into those druidic roots of, of Merlin adding ties to, human sacrifice.
or those Fae type roots, because the Fae will be like, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. But they're giving you all this stuff because they're maneuvering you to the place where they want you to die.
Yeah. All this is going to come at a cost, and you're going to be the one who's going to have to pay the cost, or you should be the one to pay the cost for the help that you received. So that's, also part of the hero's journey is, the self-sacrifice, and when you're coming back full circle. Jon Snow, he listens to all of Maester Aemon's advice, kill the boy and, let the man be born. And well, hey, last I knew, at the end of Dance of Dragons, Jon was dead.
Maester Aemon maneuvered him there, though.
No. But he kind of was preparing Jon, his mindset. The advice that he gives him, and kind of puts Jon in that mindset that he has to be the one.
Yeah, he's preparing him to come to a place where if it's going to be necessary to make a great sacrifice, then that, he's willing to go there, and and depending on, we won't dwell on this, please God no, but depending on, which, version of the story versus George's books or the adaptation, Jon ends in an extremely dark place, either way. And it's just, so even if Aemon doesn't know what exactly he's preparing Jon for, he knows that tough decisions lie ahead, and that's not necessarily going to work out well for Jon. So, yeah.
Right, it's not going to be like a happily ever after story. Yeah. The hard, like you say, hard decisions are going to have to be made, and that, one of them might have to be, he's going to have to physically sacrifice, mentally sacrifice his soul. Some enormous sacrifice is going to be asked of him, and he has to be prepared to accept those consequences.
My favorite.
Betsy Mother Starts has a pretty cool question here. She asks, what's your take that the Arthurian legend is actually Welsh or Cornish and not British? Well, my answer to that, Miss Betsy, is that what we have are fragments from Wales and Cornwall, because those are areas of the British Isles that weren't completely overrun by, Roman occupation. There's some remnants of stories that have survived there from through the Roman conquest and the subsequent Saxon and Dane and all the other invasions. Those little areas are like the hardcore areas that never fully submitted and kind of kept some of their older traditions and stories alive. They kept their language alive much, much longer. So I have to say that we have them to thank that we have these stories. But the fact that, that they survived only there is very telling. So I can't say that they were or were not prevalent in the rest of the islands, but I'm going to go with they were, just because it was because the Druids were, the main, they were the religious figures for all these desperate. Now the tribes of Britain were not united. They were all separate kingdoms and tribes, but they had a very common base religion under the Druids. And as Merlin kind of comes from that wellspring of the Druidic figure standing beside the king and imparting knowledge, I'm just going to have to say that I have to go with it. That he was not just specifically to Wales and Cornwall. But what do I know?
I mean, nobody really knows.
Right.
And honestly, as long as it's not Welsh, I'm still cool with it then.
But I mean, all of this is why, was a big thing for Tolkien, that he always lamented that there wasn't a specifically British mythology, or English mythology, and so that's why he set out to create Lord of the Rings.
Well, I have to argue with Mr. Tolkien about this because I do think
I said that he said that. I didn't necessarily say that he was right.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, as far as Tolkien having like a creation mythology and background, that because there isn't really like a lot of creation mythology, how the world was made, coming from that corner of coming from Great Britain. So I mean, as far as that mythology, yes, I do agree. But they do have this long history of storytelling and historical figures, mythological figures that to draw from. So it's there. It's just not like fully fleshed out.
I'm sorry. I think Kelly might be having a seizure or something.
Kelly, are you okay? You just typed a lot of capitals.
I bet it's some Welsh word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not our favorite. Yeah. Yeah, but that's my take on it. I'm not a scholar of, I don't have a degree in the history of British mythology, but that's kind of my take on it. Oh, Kelly, what is it?
She's cursing at me in Welsh because of this, basically.
Oh, okay. Well,
because of my well-documented hatred for the country of Wales.
You invited that on yourself, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, you really did.
The thing is, this is the reaction I wanted from Kelly, and she's actually playing right into my hands. Thank you.
Well, yes. Well, Kelly deserves all of our love and support today. So
she does. I know you're not feeling well, bud. So
I'm just going to replace when we do the X-Men stream on Jawoof. I'm just going to, instead of doing the mid-roll, I'm just going to allow Kelly that time to curse, in Steven's direction in Welsh for the whole time.
Oh, please do. Please
I am looking forward to that.
She's probably going to call me a bachad a couple of times. Pretty sure that's how that's pronounced, bachad.
You're some type of wiper of other people's bottoms or something.
Yes, exactly. All right, Merlin.
Yeah, Merlin, that guy.
We kind of derailed it for a minute.
Is there anybody in the chat besides Kelly? I'm just wondering at this point.
Well,
Jordy's in there.
Yeah, Jordy's there, but she is just spamming us. She's just spamming us. So that was a great question, Betsy. I was just wondering if maybe anybody else has, some questions for the panel today that we can go right off into the weeds about. I'll ask the chat. So what is you guys' favorite Merlin-esque type figure from fantasy, sci-fi, literature, or what have you? What would you say your favorite incarnation is? Or you can actually choose Merlin if you like, because he's pretty cool.
Mom is like, be careful, I might have some Welsh DNA. If you will look closely, you will notice that I have lots of Scottish and lots of English, but no Welsh. God.
Damn, Steve.
Okay.
Oh. All right, guys. What's the best song from Disney's Merlin?
It's been too long since I've seen it. So it's the one that goes Higatus, Pigatus, Migatus, Mum, Prestidigitonium. Because that's
the one where the pots and pans are getting
Yes, and that's when he's like packing up his stuff to go, I think. And it's all
Oh,
like levitating and shrinking down, shrink in size, very small. We've got to make enough room for all. That's the one I remember. So
I mean, does Merlin or does he not have like the best bag of holding ever? You know?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm mixed between that one, but I also like the song "That's What Makes the World Go Round" when their fish is swimming underwater,
Yeah.
because that's a good one too. But I think you're right, Stephen.
I mean it's the only one I remember.
That's probably makes it the best, right?
That makes it the best because it's the most memorable.
Yeah, it's all
Although
stuck
I
in.
do remember the Mad Mad Madam Mim song a little bit,
Yeah,
which Aaron
Yeah,
pointed out.
yeah. Aaron's given some love there for Madam Mim. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
it's like, really, Merlin, you're surprised that she cheated in that contest. It's like it's the most obvious thing in the world.
A bubbity scrubbity. Yeah, I love the way that they just use like these nonsense words, when he's making up this, making up this song, and it's like, well, isn't that kind of like what all the, making fun of like all the magic words or abracadabra or what have you, being, trying to make all these serious, things, and he's just like scribbity bibbity bobbity whatever and they and just making it like a fun little thing about what he wants to have done. So that's oh yeah. What did he say? Kind of like Welsh. Yeah.
Exactly, a bunch of nonsense words.
Made up words. Made up words. Kelly's gonna kill us. No, but she is our resident expert on the Welsh language, and I call on her quite a bit, so I really can't make her mad.
I want to say, like, I have Mary Stewart's book, first book on my shelf. It's just like I have a million books I'm trying to read this year, so that's on the list. I can't wait because obviously, I love Merlin, so that's going to be a fun book to read. I just have to get there.
Yeah, one of the more recent versions that I really liked was, I mean, it's not super recent, but the television, the Merlin, that you can watch the whole series now on Netflix. It's like Merlin going from like the bumbling student through coming into his power. So I mean, it was kind of cool. It was kind of a different spin on it. The
But
conversation.
he's very much he's the student in that story, so he's not even the Merlin figure in
Right.
his own story, because he has both, and I don't remember the characters' names, but he has an advisor, sort of father figure, and there's also the dragon who is
Yeah,
imparting.
that's what I was going to get to. Is like Merlin is in that particular story is kind of learning magic from the font itself. As dragons are this manifestation, magic made manifest in the world with all of the knowledge that comes along with it, and that just to show how powerful Merlin is, as attaining his knowledge directly from like the source, so to speak. And even in the Welsh tales of Merlin, when he is he goes to the Vortigern's castle, and there's two dragons fighting underneath the castle. He's always tied to dragons and dragon mythology, like directly. So that's a direct tie into his magical origins. Directly tied. He's the OG dragon dude. And Aaron calls out, T.A. Barron writes good Merlin stuff. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up. Okay, I think his mentor figure in the TV series is the name is Gaius. I think that's the character, and who's
Gaia?
who's very much like a Merlin Gandalf figure to Merlin in the story.
But he's
interesting that
actually
his
a
name. Interesting
No,
his name is Gaius.
wrong story.
Wrong Gaius?
Yeah.
Gaius kind of denotes too that that Roman ancestry, hints at that Roman ancestry that Merlin supposedly had. It's all an amalgamation of things, but when you think of the Merlin that is like the engineer type figure who does all these, builds all these cool inventions and whatnot, that's the where he's drawing from, like that classical knowledge and heritage that he got from his classical education of Roman engineering, and in a time of where you're not in a well, we're going to call it the dark ages. They weren't quite so dark, but you're in a time where technology is lagged behind. Someone who can pull out these types of, who can do physics, who can do calculus, who can do, has all this higher education. That too, it can be seen as having this forbidden or this magical occult knowledge, because most people are uneducated. Most people can't read.
I just had the weirdest thought, Stephen, though, because you're bringing up, Battlestar Gaius, and that is most certainly not a mentor, figure in the vein of Merlin at all.
No,
but in a weird way, 6 is that to him.
Yeah, I guess you're right. She's a Helfer character.
Especially once she becomes, sort of the specter in his mind. She kind of is that figure. That's certainly not what you would picture as a Merlin character, but I do think she kind of fits in that mold slightly.
Right on. I haven't watched it. I'll have to take both of your words.
I'll have to fix that, Nessie.
Well, I mean, I watched the OG version, with who's the Lauren Green and what have you. I watched the original version of it way back in the day. So
Yeah.
I know. I'll put it on the list with the 6,000 other things that I'm behind on. But
for sure, we all got a list.
All got a list.
As long as BST is on your list, I'm happy.
It probably is.
Well, it is.
It is now. So, well, guys, we've been going at this now for about 2 hours. I think Robert in Deep Geek should be starting his live stream
any
minute now. So I wanted to go ahead and wrap up. So, you guys that are heading that way, have a great time. And thank you all for coming today and listening to us ramble on about these things and these characters. So,
yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on to talk about this, Nessie. I mean, this was a blast, and I it's been hell scheduling this to make it actually happen. But
right,
thank you so much. Obviously, this covered a lot of ground of stuff that I love dearly. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that both of you were able to come on my channel this time and talk about some things that we don't get a chance to talk about together on Here Be Dragons, because we're diving deep into the mythology and the things. So I'm glad you guys could take some time out of your day off to come hang out and chat with me over here at the Unspun Yarn. So it was great, and I mean, just it's been a while since it's been just the three of us talking about the things we love. So
yeah, I thought about that last night. It's like obviously we love having our guests come on our channels, but I really do love it when it's the three of us.
Yeah, the trio.
Yeah, we Dragons 3. So thank you guys for coming today. And we went over the bid roll, but John, what you got coming up again for those people that came in late?
Okay, this Saturday at 7 p.m. Movie which I've never seen. I'm excited to get to watch it. We're going to be talking about Mean Girls. Amy and I are going to be joined by Kate Bertinsky. The week after that, it'll be X-Men with Kelly, Jaded Redhead, and Amy's friend Jenna. And then the week after that, Stephen will be joining us along with Cecilia from Deep Australia to talk about Pan's Labyrinth, one of the greatest movies ever made. So,
It is
Right
a
on.
fantastic film.
That'll be great.
You want to talk about some hero's journey and some slightly maybe Merlin type characters.
Yeah, maybe a little yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot to unwrap there, a lot to unpack. I can't wait to see you guys take that one on. So, Steven, what you doing besides Pan's Labyrinth?
Cobra Kai on Sunday with
Oh,
Cecilia.
Kai! Yeah.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir. I've been a fan of that show since it started in 2018, and I have loved it ever since. It's fantastic. It's a great way to take a series of really good movies, bring them into the modern era, and make them feel fresh, but make them feel like they understand it's about the legacy. It's not about the nostalgia.
Right. Yeah, I got that. I really.
And like, it's not that Daniel is okay. I knew somebody was going to say Daniel was the real bully. No, but
this is exactly why I haven't watched the show yet.
but that's the thing. Daniel isn't the real bully. But it's really about trying to understand the characters better. We'll get into all of that next week. It is a fantastic show. I have loved it so far, and it's going to be Cecilia, Fofo Rivera, and Bronte, John Bronstein, will be on to talk about it. So, yeah. And after that, I don't even know what's coming. But
and this is the thing. Like, this is why I almost tried to cram in the show for this weekend, because I'm jealous of the people you're having on. So I'm like, I want to be part of that party, but there's no way I could have pulled it off and like not pulled out the rest of my hair. So
right, I got you.
Yeah,
well, again,
it's a great show. It's a great show, guys. If you haven't taken the time to watch it, do so. It's, especially us kids who grew up in the 80s. It's a great introspective look at where those characters are now, all grown up and dealing with real world interactions, and dealing with the fallout of things. So it's great. It really is.
It doesn't turn Daniel into the good guy, into the bad guy.
Mm-mm.
It does try to give some redemption to Johnny Lawrence, who was the antagonist from the first film, and he actually got a little bit of redemption at the end of that film, where he congratulates Daniel and hands him the trophy, like, yes, he was an asshole. He was also a teenager who's going through shit,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's definitely worth watching. I'm super excited to talk about a show that I genuinely watched just for the fun of watching it, and we're going to talk about it on Sunday. Yeah.
All right, and come back to this channel in another 2 weeks, and you're gonna have yours truly and good friend of the channel, Aaron M., who is in the chat today, as always, and we're going to be talking about Morgan Le Fay. So we are going to do the flip side of this conversation, and we're going to talk. Yeah,
Nemesis talking about
John Sy. I know. I mean, John. I mean, it's Aaron. We're going to be talking about this stuff. But I promise, when I start to do Mist of Avalon content, if you're not terribly busy with your own stuff on JWuff, if we can pencil you in at my people, get with your people. But I know I'll have you on to discuss that. So
meanwhile, I'll try and cram in rereading that, because that shouldn't take any time at all.
It won't take much time at all. In fact, who knows? I may be doing it as like a reread series myself.
That would be really great. I'd really enjoy that. I mean, I'll fit in the time regardless. I'll that's the thing. Like, if I can just reread some stuff of what was going on in each section, I'm sure it'll refresh my memory enough that I'd love to talk about that story. It's so good.
and that's how I think I'm going to approach it, because it is a daunting, it is a daunting book. It's a daunting series of books, but just taking that as a reread, and it gives everyone who hasn't had a chance to read it, a chance to like go through that journey with us. So I think that's where I'm headed with this. So that's future stuff, and near future stuff. And sometime in the next month, we're going to have another Bleak the Patriarchy episode. I think the next one up is going to be with Kelly Jaded Redhead. Or no. We're going to have the rescheduled episode that we should have had with Lo the Lynx. So look forward to that. That'll be in February. All right, guys, thank you for coming, and have a good afternoon, evening, whatever time zone. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.